This week, inshallah, I put it on the group as well. You might have seen it. Will be our last halaqah sohbet for this year. We are going to give a break now, as we always do at the end of each year. And we will come back in January, inshallah. January 13th, Monday, the 13th, inshallah, we will come back. Now, we had completed the Risales, the words, the first, we call them the small words from 1 to 9, I believe. And I'm going to start with Gülen Hoca Efendi's, the Pırlanta series, Diamond series. He's got a number of books as well. We will begin with the most basic one, the first one. It's called Essentials of the Islamic Faith, inshallah. This is how it starts, so we'll begin from there. And January, we'll continue with that. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin. Ve salatu ve selamu ala eşrefi halk seyyidul enam Muhammedur Resulullah sallallahu teala aleyhi ve sellem. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi şrah li sadri ve yesir li emri ve hlul ukdeten min lisani yefkahu kavli ve ufevvidu emri ilallah innallaha basirun bin ibad. Since it is the essentials of the Islamic faith, he begins with the first chapter, arguments for the existence of Allah. That's what he begins with. And then he addresses all the five essentials of the creed, the aqidah of Islam. So I'll begin with the first chapter, inshallah. Arguments for the existence of Allah. Everything is contingent, for it is equally possible that they will exist or not exist. That's what contingent means. Contingent means that they are dependent on external things. They are not dependent on themselves. And this can be applicable to everything in the universe. No matter what you analyze in the universe, you will see that they are contingent. They are not self-sustaining, or they don't originate themselves. None of us do. Nothing in the universe does. Anything can exist at any time and anywhere in any form and without any character. Anything. This also means that matter and energy and everything that exists in the universe is a possibility. They are possibilities, probabilities. Their existence is not a necessity. They don't have to exist. It's only a probability. For example, you can apply that for yourselves too. Did I need to exist? Is my existence a necessity? No. I could have existed or not existed. Nothing would have changed if I did not exist. So our existence is only a possibility. There's a 50-50 chance that we can exist or not exist. This is called the imkan argument for Allah. Nothing or no one in the universe has a role in determining the way, the time, and the place of its coming into existence, or its character and features. Nothing in the universe determines its own existence, the time that it would come into existence, how it would be. Nothing decides that in the universe, even the stars, galaxies, they don't have that decision-making ability, including us. We don't decide when we will enter this world and in what shape we will come to this world, what sort of a character we will have. None of us decide that. And our features too. This means there must be a power, an infinite power, an infinite knowledge that chooses between a thing's and object's existence and non-existence. Because you can ask the question, why does the universe exist? Why does it not exist, but exists? You can ask that question. It means that there's an external being who makes the decision whether it exists or not, because it can't make that decision itself. So there must be a power that chooses between a thing's or an object's existence or non-existence, and that gives it its unique characteristics. decides on that characteristics as well. This power must be infinite. Why it needs to be infinite? We will look at that too. Must be infinite, have absolute will, and all comprehensive knowledge. Necessarily, it is Allah. But why does it need to be infinite? Because if you give it to something else, you know, it is a mystery where the universe has come from, isn't it? At the moment, mystery of science. We still don't know. They are proposing all of these different scenarios, different theories, but no one knows exactly how the universe, where the universe comes from, what caused the universe. No one knows this. Now, if you put a cause for the universe and say, perhaps this is the way it happened, for example, you put forward a theory, let us say scientific theory, that cause you place there cannot be contingent, like the universe. Cannot be just a possibility, because if it is, then you need another cause that made that. You would need another cause, since it will also be dependable on external factors. That is why the thing that caused the universe, the agent, has to have infinite power. And he cannot be contingent, dependent on something else. He has to be necessarily existent. Means has to exist, has to have infinite power, and has to have infinite knowledge to know every detail in the universe. Another argument that he puts forward, Hoca Efendi, everything changes. Therefore, it is contained in time and space, meaning that they have a beginning and they have an end. Everything does change, isn't it? Do we ever see things in the universe that exist or stand the same for eternity? There's nothing in the universe. We cannot come across anything in the universe that stands for eternity. Our sun up there, it's been there for 5 billion years, close to 5 billion years, and it's slowly heading towards the end of its life. As it uses up all the hydrogen fuel in its core, it's going to slowly transform into a red giant, start inflating. It will come all the way to Earth, its size, and everything on Earth will start to boil and die. It will eventually happen because we see this happening with all the stars in the universe, and that is the fate of our sun too. And it will eventually die. Our sun will die too, just as the rest of the stars. If they are big, very big, they can turn into a black hole after their death, after a supernova. If they are a little smaller in mass, they can turn into they'll still go through a supernova explosion and turn into a pulsar or a neutron star. If they are smaller like our sun is the average size, they will eventually turn into a white dwarf. That's just the core of the star. The rest will go explode or disperse into space as what we call stellar nebula, just gases and things like that. But the core will stay there and it will become a white dwarf, because we see this happening in the universe. So everything changes, as he says. Everything has a beginning and everything has an end in the universe. Everything has a beginning and an end. Therefore, they are all contained in time and space. Nothing in the universe we observe is outside of time and space. Everything contained within there, meaning they begin and an end. That which has a beginning needs a beginningless agent. Anything that has a beginning needs a beginningless agent to bring it into existence. If it has a beginning, then it needs a beginningless agent, which is Allah, to bring it into existence. For it cannot originate itself, as this would require an infinite regression of originators, as I mentioned before. If someone says, sometimes atheists come up with that argument. All right, for argument's sake, let us say there is God, they say. Then who created God? No, that's what their argument. When you ask a question like who created God, you are making God into a contingent being, dependable being. Then he would require another originator. Then you would ask another question. What originated that God? And another question, and another question, and another question. Since philosophically you cannot enter into an infinite regress, going back, keeps on going, you would need to stop somewhere and say, there must be one originator at the beginning who doesn't need to be originated. It's quite logical, isn't it? Like Hoca Efendi uses this example for that when they ask this question. Maybe I mentioned it before. These brothers will not know that. Assuming that you're sitting on a chair and the chair doesn't have two back legs, only has two legs in the front. So when you sit on that chair, you would automatically fall back, nothing to support it. So you don't want to fall back. What you did is you place another chair at the back of the chair you're sitting on, but that second chair doesn't have two back legs either. And then you place another one, another one, another one. You can put 1 billion chairs at the back with two legs. When you sit in the front, you will still fall back, unless you have one chair at the very beginning with four legs that supports everything. Bediüzzaman uses a similar argument. He says you can ask, what pulls the last wagon, last car on a train? You would say the one in front. What pulls that one? The one in front, the one in front, the one in front. When you come to the locomotive, you cannot ask the same question. What pulls the locomotive? The locomotive is self-powered. It pulls everything, including itself. So there are a number of arguments you can put forward there, philosophically as well, which would, reject the notion of infinite regress. Of course, there is another argument that I use too in regards to time. We know that space-time has had a beginning about 13.8 billion years ago. If someone was to argue that maybe time is infinite in the past, didn't have a beginning, this is philosophically cannot be accepted. You know why? Because if time did not have a beginning in the past, we would have never arrived to the present. Why? Because if you wanted to go back to the beginning, you will never get to a beginning. You will keep on going, billions, 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 billions years. There will never be a beginning if it was infinite. Then from that there, you should not have arrived to here as well. So philosophically, it's not possible. But now we already know from a physics perspective that time and space indeed had a beginning. And whatever has a beginning must have an end. Must have an end. That's the law, physical laws there, or philosophical as well. So infinite regression of originators is not possible, as reason, intellect, cannot accept such a situation. An originator who is infinitely self-existent, self-subsistent, and immune to change is needed. So you need a being which is immune to change, cannot change. Because if he's changing too, then he's contingent. He's dependable, he needs another originator. And we cannot go into such argument. Indeed, this original originator is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If disbelievers can come up with an argument against this counter-argument, they should come up with it. But there is no counter-argument. Because disbelief is not based on judgment. Disbelief is based on denial. They're two different things. And I don't mean
The river in Egypt.
we made that joke too. I do that all. I say they're on denial. They're in denial. I don't mean the river in Egypt. You know, in denial. But it is an intelligent joke. You got to accept it. So, so it is denial. You know, because you're not putting an argument forward or evidence, any evidence forward to say that God doesn't exist. Atheism has no evidence. Have you ever seen any atheist put forward an argument, even a philosophical argument that, you know what, they sort of try to challenge religious understandings to prove their point, but that doesn't prove it. You know, you watched the last video I made, you know, even astrophysicists, like very famous people, because if there was a God, he wouldn't be like this, he would be like that. Just a minute, you know, if you don't believe, you know, why are you questioning a being whom you think doesn't exist? You know, it doesn't make sense. If there is a ghost, he would not act this way. You don't question something that doesn't exist from your perspective and its attributes. If you say, yes, there must be a God, everything indicates to God, then you can question, I wonder why he allows this or why he does this. That question comes after. So it is important that to understand that atheism has no arguments. It is a rejection. And in fact, I said this in the video too, in that video too, when they say we don't believe in God or we don't accept God, they are actually saying that there is God. Because no one would deny or feel the need to reject or deny something that doesn't exist anyway. You know, I saw in the comments of the video, somebody put there, you know, but people can argue about, you know, who is faster, Flash or the Superman. You know, somebody put it in the comments. So that doesn't mean they believe in them. See, they don't get the point. Yes, Flash and Superman, you can argue about it, but in an entertaining way. That doesn't mean you accept it. Doesn't mean that there is Flash and Superman. You know what I mean? They are just figment of somebody's imagination. They made that and they made a comic strip about them. But in reality, does anyone in the world believe Flash and Superman exist? No. Maybe you might get few people, I don't know. But in reality, you know what I mean? Like Richard Dawkins says, you know, I don't believe in unicorns either. Yeah, but nobody believes in unicorns. And I mentioned that in the video. They don't have organizations, you know, titled, you know, a unicorn. You know how they have atheists? A unicorns, you know. They don't write books about unicorns don't exist. Here's our proof. Because you know they don't exist. But in regards to God, you know, majority of the population of the world believe in some sort of a higher power. No matter what religion they're from, but they still believe that there's some sort of a higher power. Maybe 7 billion people believe in a creator. All of these people are going to make this up. And why would you come up with an entity and say, you come up with it yourself and say, I believe in this, and then the others deny it? Who would do that? Why would you do that? Why would you feel the need to do that? In reality, we believe in God because everything indicates to God. It's there. Everything indicates to God. Life is a riddle. That's the next argument. Life is a riddle, a puzzle. Scientists cannot explain it with material causes or discover its origin, and it's transparent. It's all there. It displays a creative power. So we have no explanation how non-living matter transforms into a living matter. There is no explanation. because we know every living being on earth, from bacteria to animals to humans, they all come from another living being. Yeah? It is called biogenesis. Life comes from life. But if you take it all the way back, how would you explain, how the first life emerged from a non-living matter? There is no lab evidence to this. There is nothing to show that it can happen. All the mathematical equations say it's not possible. So life is a riddle. It's unknown. What makes, a living being a living being? What makes a living being a living being? It's unknown. Given this, life itself declares Allah has created me. Everything that exists in the universe as a whole, and the entire universe, requires the existence of all parts for its existence. There was a background noise there. Just a second. Let me just mute that. So everything that exists in the universe and the universe itself as a whole displays a magnificent harmony and order in themselves and in their interrelationships, meaning that the universe is interconnected. Now we know this more with the discovery of quantum entanglement. Yeah. So two particles get entangled. If you separate them by 1 billion light years, they're still somehow connected. We know this now. Einstein called it scary, effect at vast distances. But it happens. It happens. So the entire universe is interconnected because the laws that are in effect in the universe are the same no matter where you go. In a sense of general physics, standard physics, classical mechanics. They are no different in Andromeda galaxy. They are no different in Milky Way galaxy. So there's an interrelationship. The existence of one part necessitates the existence of the whole, and the whole requires the existence of all of its parts for its own existence. Yeah. So in a building, when we look at a brick, it indicates that its existence proves that there is the building, because they are all coming together to form the building. But the entire building also indicates to individual bricks as well, because they're coming together to build that. The universe is like that. Human body is like that as well. For example, a deformed cell may destroy the entire body because it can turn into a cancer, tumor, and all sorts of things. Similarly, an apple requires the collaborative and cooperative existence of water, air, soil, the sun, as their mutual and well-balanced cooperation for its existence. So an apple cannot exist, just a simple apple cannot exist without air, water, sun, earth, yeah? They all need to work together in collaboration for an apple to exist. So everything is working together, as you can see. For its existence, this harmony that we observe in nature and the cooperation points to a creator who knows the relationships and the characteristics of everything, and who can create and design everything with order and harmony. There was an argument by Fahrettin El-Razi, who lived about 1,000 years ago. He's a very famous tafsir scholar, exegesis scholar of the Quran, Fahrettin Razi. His tafsir is amazing. Like, he lived 1,000 years ago, but he was at the same time a polymath. meaning that he was well versed in astronomy, physics, mathematics at the same time. An Islamic Quran scholar, but a scientist as well. He says when you look at the universe and analyze, you see a tertib in the universe. Tertib means order. There's order. Everything functioning with laws. There's order. Because tertib indicates to tedbir. Tedbir means governance. Tertib indicates to tedbir, which means if you go from a distance, if you look at the military and you see thousands of soldiers marching together in harmony, they are stopping at the same time, they're moving at the same time, they're turning left at the same time. You see there's an order there. Then you automatically say, there is someone giving them commandments. Yeah? Turn right, and they're all turning. Turn left, there must be a general or a commander there. The universe works like that too. Everything is in order. It indicates to governance. That's what Razi says. And governance, dominance, governance in Islamic theology is called rububiyyah. It is the rububiyyah of Allah. He needs to govern everything so that everything can function harmoniously and through interconnectedness. Otherwise, today I was speaking to someone. He was saying, isn't it possible that Allah may have just established the universe and left it to function? This is a deist way of thinking, And I said, no, it's not possible, because when you look at your body, you have about 86 trillion living cells in your body. I said, which one are you controlling? Which one are we in charge of? Are we in charge of, let's have a look at the bigger organs. Are we in charge of our heart? Are we making it pump? Are we in charge of our blood, which circulates within our veins, blood vessels, which are about close to 100,000 kilometers? They go around the earth twice. Just one human's blood vessels can go around the earth twice. That's how big they are. Are we in charge of that, blood circulation? No. Are we in charge of our liver? Are we in charge of our kidneys? None of them. And in a humorous way, I always say, if you run, they still work. You lie down and sleep, you don't even know they're still working, keeping you alive. Then there is governance there. Someone is controlling them. So if he stops his control, you'll be dead. Instantly, you'll be dead. So there is order there, and the creator of order is Allah. All creation in the universe exhibits an overwhelming artistry and dazzling worth. Artistry of dazzling worth. Yet it is brought into being as we see it with great ease and speed. Everything comes into existence with great ease. But yet they all contain unimaginable artistry. Don't they? Think about it. Everything. Now, sometimes in the past, when I used to do these talks with, the high school, students and them, I used to ask them, I used to say to them, you are the richest person on earth. And I used to, how is that possible? And I used to say to them, you have 1.4 kilogram of brain. Human brain is big, quite large, And I say, would you give away 1 gram of it for $1 billion? Would you do it? If they give you $1 billion and they're going to say, we're going to do a lobotomy on you. Hey? Frontal lobe. Frontal lobe. Just 1 gram they're going to take, they're going to give you $1 billion. And then you'll be like this. So what if you have $1 billion? The argument is, look how valuable just your brain is. Just your brain. Would you give away your eye? I wouldn't give my eye. Would you give away your 2 arms for $10 billion? Would you? 2 arms. You cannot even clean yourself in the toilet. Imagine that. So maybe Sean might take a robotic arm or something attached on him. Because these days Sean finds it. Sean, it doesn't matter. Even if you had, all these robots working for you, doing everything for you, you wouldn't want to lose your 2 arms. So what? You're going to expect someone else to feed you. It's awful. These are so big of a ni'mat. Think about it. So humans may start solving, a lot of problems in the future because Allah has given us that ability. As long as we don't become, arrogant in doing these things, because the designs that Allah has already provided for us, we are just copying them. That's all we're doing. We are just copying them. You might remember I gave you this example. You can do research on it too. Sikorsky helicopters, when they designed the helicopters first, they actually simulated the flight of a dragonfly. They looked at how the dragonfly flies, and they used computers to simulate that so they can design their helicopters. Dragonflies have been around for millions of years, long before technology and human being existed. Now, if you're amazed with that technology, including the Musk's technology, sure, shouldn't you be amazed with that 200 million-year-old technology? But they're not. They're not. They said that could have happened by itself. Doesn't make sense now. It doesn't, does it? So all creation exhibits an overwhelming artistry of dazzling worth, yet it's brought into being as we see it with great ease and speed. Now, how easy living beings come into existence, don't they? When Samarkand comes, you see millions of flies, insects, just suddenly everywhere appearing. So much ease. But if you take just one of them and analyze the technology in them, biological technology, you'll be amazed. The other day, I was looking at something, I tweeted it as well. Fruit fly, fruit fly? It's called, in Latin name is Drosophila. Fruit fly. Its brain is smaller than the top of a needle. Tip of a needle. It's very small. 0.5 millimeters, as I remember. Fruit flies. It has 140,000 neurons in its brain. It can, work out things. It can remember things within that little tiny thing. It's like a very tiny computer, and it's been around for millions of years. How can not you be amazed with this? Have a look at it. It's all there in front of you, isn't it, Vaisal? Yes. So, furthermore, creation is divided into countless families, genera, genus, species, even smaller groups, each of which exists in great abundance. Despite this, we see nothing but order, art, and ease in creation. Because when you produce something in human terms, in large amounts, the quality will drop, wouldn't it? Because if you look at cars like Ferraris, Porsches, they're all very specifically produced. Maybe just giving an example, maybe they produce 5, 6 of them, at a certain period of time. But if you go to the Ford factory, 500 cars every day. But you put the two next to each other, you see the difference. So the faster you produce something, production, the quality goes down. But in nature, it happens the opposite. Billions of living things are produced every day. Never loses quality. never loses quality. They are in the highest artistry and beauty and design. So this shows the existence of one with an absolute power and knowledge who is no other than Allah. Whatever has been created has a purpose. In nature, whatever has been created has a purpose. You can never point to anything in nature, including a fly, and say this doesn't have a purpose. It doesn't need to exist. Google it and you'll see how much purpose it has. Including, like we don't eat pork, yeah? It's haram to us. But I Googled pork, what's the use of pork? How many things come out? They help, with the ecological balance. So every animal, every species exists for a purpose. They're there for a reason and they serve a purpose higher than themselves. It's always a purpose higher than themselves. So everything has a purpose. You cannot point your finger at anything and say this doesn't have a purpose. You look at all the elements, you cannot say, why does hydrogen exist? I laugh at you. It has to exist. So if you look at the ecology, everything, no matter how apparently insignificant in your eyes, has a significant role and purpose. The chain of creation, maybe from a bacteria, prokaryotes, the most, ancient bacteria, to humanity, its last link, is clearly directed towards a final purpose. A fruit-bearing tree's purpose is to yield fruits, and its whole life is directed towards that goal. That's the tree's duty, to bear fruits. Similarly, the tree of creation, the universe, yields humanity as the final and most comprehensive fruit. Nothing is vain. Rather, every item, activity, and event has many different purposes. And they're not just one purpose. When you analyze things, you see they have many different purposes. This requires a wise one who pursues certain purposes in creation, since only humanity can understand those purposes with their intellect. The wisdom and purposelessness in creation necessarily point to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The other day, I saw one video on Twitter, this guy who is an atheist, or he says he's an agnostic. He keeps on trying to put up these arguments against God. You probably know him, you guys. And in this video, he says it's quite obvious that human beings, we came from the monkeys. It's very obvious, primates, because we have the coccyx bone, a tailbone. He says, and there is leftover from evolution. Because monkeys had a thing, their tail, and it's leftover. As we evolved, that was just leftover there. They are called, in evolution theory, they are called vestigial organs. It means useless. There is no use for them. And then I tweeted on his Twitter, I said, if it's useless, coccyx bone, I said, why don't you go have a surgery and get it removed? See if you can sit on your bum again after that. Have a look at it. Have a look at it. Everything people thought in the past was vestigial, useless. Now they know they are useful. Your appendix, useful. It's like the lower immune system of your body. It collects bad bacteria. Your appendix, it's been proven. And they said, in the past, they said thyroids were useless. They are leftovers from evolution. Do you know how many people in the past went and removed their thyroids because of that? They believed the science of evolution. Imagine their lives after that must have been horrible, because your thyroids controls the entire balance of your body. If they start working like this, they straight away give you tablets to take because it needs to be balanced. everything in the body has a purpose. They're there for a reason. And what they used to call vestigial organs, today they are not vestigial organs anymore. We know they have a purpose now. So everything does have a purpose. And nothing is vain. Rather, every item, every activity, every event has many purposes. This requires a wise one who pursues certain purposes in creation, since only humanity can understand these purposes, because rest of the creation cannot understand these things. We understand them. We study them. The wisdom and purposeness in creation necessarily points to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's 8:45. We're still going to pray. Inshallah, ajma'in. We will continue this. I'll mark this where we left because it's important. Inshallah, we will continue this in January, hopefully.